I'm Shar Hugh. I'm CEO of the Helper Bees, and this is another episode of Voices of Long-Term Care Insurance. We're actually here in the Helper Bees HQ in Austin, Texas, with John Sieb, who's the business head and chief operating officer for long-term care insurance at Prudential. So, John, thanks for being here in our offices recording our new podcast. This is a bit of a surprise for John because we haven't exactly gone through all of the questions with him, but he's great at speaking off the cuff. So the reason that we started this podcast is we've hit the scene, the long-term care insurance scene, about 6 years ago, and have met a tremendous amount of really awesome individuals who are changing, I think, not only the industry but the broader aging-in-place landscape within the U.S. But they don't always know each other, and we're lucky because we're vendors. We have to go around like bees and flowers and pollen and grab pollen from different carriers. We hope that this podcast brings it all together, shares some of the leaders in our industry, not only from yesterday and today, but also to see their insight as to where we're going. And our goal is to accumulate these stories and just put it out there in the world. And so immediately thought of you. You've been instrumental to a lot of our thought process when it comes to innovation as a company and me as a leader. And so I'm super happy that you're here to speak with us.
It's great to be at the Hive and here, and my privilege and pleasure to sit down with you on this podcast and just talk about what's new and where we're going in the industry.
Wonderful. So the first question is, how did you get your start in long-term care insurance? Any high points that you remember from that period of time? How did you stumble into this weird world of insurance?
That's a great question. So a little bit of my background. I'm going on my 35th year with Prudential in various positions, but mainly with a finance or operations and systems, financial reporting, data lens. So one day I was summoned to my boss's office. There was another senior vice president there, and they said, "How'd you like to run long-term care?" And I said, sure. Not realizing at the time why they selected me. And the funny story is our current vice chair, but the CFO had to approve my appointment. So he's the CFO at the time, and they came to him with about 4 or 5 names, and he said nope. And then they said my name, he said yes.
Wow.
So that would really got me energized to really make a difference, not only for Prudential and Prudential's long-term care, but the center of what we do is the customer, and trying to change the whole dynamics around how we engage the customer, how we serve the customer, because you really want to provide the most value to them, and not only with their product line, but a big key to our strategy is our aging in place strategy, which really we want our policyholders to live happier, healthier, more independent at home longer. And we've been at that journey for about 4 years now. Have made some inroads thanks to the Helper Bees and other strategic partners. But the value is in engagement and behavior change, and the only way you can do that is offer capabilities and solutions that help the policyholder or the claimant, because we rather have the claimant on claim at home, the lowest cost, and provide services so they stay at home. And you can look at all the statistics. People want to age in place, and that means they're home, but really don't have a lot of subject matter knowledge to make the right choices. So Prudential wants to be a trusted advisor in that space and really help them make the right decisions. And we have a very broad strategy that I said that we started 3 or 4 years ago that we are now executing. We still have about 3 to 5 years to go. But you and I have often talked about what's the key. The key is data. And I say data is the new currency, but the first thing we did when I got approval for the LTC strategy back in 2017 is we built a data lake. Very first thing, we weren't looking at executing on aging in place capabilities or care concierge or anything. We want to make sure that we have the data to inform us so we make the right decisions. We don't make any decisions within Prudential long-term care without data. We have a data lake. It has all of our policyholder records up to the first policy we sold. It has all the administration metrics and data back almost 10 years now. And it has all of our claimant data back to 2006. So we leverage that highly, and we've been able to provide insights not only to the business or the operations, but to our actuarial and finance department on where we're going with the business from an economic and a risk and a capital perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. So we work with a lot of different carriers, and that's definitely unique. People know data is important to make ROI calculations, but also future decisions. It sounds like you guys were well ahead of your time. How did you get buy-in? Because it's so hard to do within a large company to get the resources, to get the strategic buy-in, to have something so forward-thinking. So ROI it may not be immediate with the data lake. You're doing this for the future. Do you have anything that you can impart that you thought about to get this bought within Prudential broadly, or was it an easy sell?
It's never easy when you're asking for capital and money, as you well know. But you have to take a step back and what are the demographics of your block? And blocks are different based on the attain age and claim age, where they are in that claim curve. And you really have to match your strategy and the end game to that. So we're a very young block. At the time we put the strategy together, and say we had an attained age of about 65.
Wow.
I think we had maybe 2,500 people on claim.
Wow.
So it's such a small block that what did we really want to do at the end of it? I talked about the customer experience, which I think is important in getting buy-in. But as we charted a journey, we looked at what do we need to do to drive enterprise value. So not long-term care policyholder value, enterprise value, which people are really more focused on their business line, but how can we accrete as much value, both economic and non-economic, to Prudential enterprise? And that's really around optimizing, de-risking, claims management, you can say is part of de-risking, but let's separate that for a second. Improving or increasing customer satisfaction through better capabilities and better engagement, and then ultimately, how do we maximize the value of a customer within the Prudential framework? So as you know, right, you have a strategic alliance with Assurance IQ, who's our distribution partner for financial products like MA. So how do we bring the rest of the enterprise in to help them out through our strategic partners and our operating model? Still early in the journey, but we really have seen a lot of positive results, including the Care Concierge program, where depending on how you measure it, 25 to 35% engagement, really a lot of stellar feedback from not only claimants, but their caregivers and their support network, because if people need long-term care insurance, they really need help. And it's not just about the long-term care aspect, it's about how you age in place at your home. How do you make it a better environment for them to feel comfortable that they have this support network around that in order to really, I'll say age gracefully. Nobody wants to be on long-term care. I have a policy myself. I hope I never use it, because that means, I didn't have the long-term care and catastrophic needs that a lot of our policyholders and claimants either have today or will have tomorrow. So we can impact them, their families. We can impact our brand. Brand is very key to us. We have, I think just in the United States, we have about 30 million plus customers.
Wow.
So in impacting the brand with a discontinued or run out business is very important. But that's not the way we think about the business internally. I actually have rebranded Prudential Long Term within Prudential as a data and analytics company with insurance at its core.
Yeah.
So people know that that's what's important to us, making the best decisions for all of our stakeholders to drive stakeholder value for all.
There's a lot to unpack there. How do you think that fits in? What you've done, I'll reframe it, what you've done that I think is really interesting, and people are just now talking about this. Typically in our industry, long-term care insurance is like the side thing for a lot of these large carriers, and it doesn't get the resources, typically doesn't get the attention, even though it is profoundly important, not only for that parent company, but also just for society as a whole. It sounds like what you're doing from enterprise-wide is using what we learned within long-term care insurance and really shining a light on the broader company enterprise level brand. Where do you see the opportunity to do that? Is it through wellness and better customer engagement? You mentioned the data. What data do you think coming out of it, just a few ideas around the data points that you think are going to drive enterprise value beyond long-term care insurance or within it even?
Yeah, a lot there. So let me unwind it a little bit because I don't think I fully closed the loop on the previous question. So let me close that and come back.
Yeah.
So, I've explained the end game. And then what you need to do is say, what is your approach to executing on that strategy? And then what capital you need along the way. If you can get some low-hanging fruit completed that gives you economic benefit, it helps fuel the capital that you need down the road. But I've learned in a discontinued business not to ask for a lot of capital. One time we did ask for a lot of capital and we didn't get prioritized, but then we changed the strategy to make sure that we're using better capabilities at a lower cost.
Yeah.
And that mainly came through leveraging strategic partners, and mainly in the aging in place space and the claim space where you get immediate payback. The payback in the future comes primarily where we see it in the pre-claim space. So mental wellness, physical wellness, home and on-the-go safety. And you have to make an investment in that ongoing, and we feel very strongly that predictive modeling plays a key role in that. So one of the predictive models in our roadmap is an aging in place profile, where if we get the right permissions to get external data, we'll actually, we can create an algorithm that'll tell us and the policyholder where they're at risk, whether it's one of those three verticals I just spoke about. And if they are, we want to offer them education and content capabilities and solutions to de-risk, which is really about engagement and behavior change. Yeah. So if you talk about the data points you ask, I think it's important that there's some clinical, medical information that's widely available. Social determinants of health, especially with the zip code, and you can get a lot of different data points on that to help. I think asking them their likelihood of behavior change on a scale of 1 to 5, because to be quite honest, we don't want to invest in a policyholder who's not willing to change their behavior based on our engagement. I think we're going to get more and more sophisticated. I think credit card spend and other spend. So there's a number of factors, but we currently have a couple of predictive models. Yeah. One that scores the probability of the claimant recovering, which we feel that we can leverage that to build the model I just mentioned, and as you know, we have a few models in the fraud space that are pretty powerful.
Do you hit on something that the industry is thinking about broadly, which is pre-claims. Do you think Prudential, or speak to either Prudential in particular or the industry more broadly, has the appetite to see these initiatives that are going to take years probably to see ROI, or do you think with your data lake and all of the historical information that you have, you're going to be able to collapse that timeline on ROI a little bit tighter?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes.
But let me explain. So one of the things when you're looking for economic return, you have to really look at what is your top 5 claim types. And so everything we do that Prudential is going to invest capital in has to be tied to a payback on one of those 5 claim types. I'm sure it's not hard to guess. What do you think our number 1 claim
Dementia,
type?
cognitive.
Dementia, right? So to me and that represents quite a large number of our claimants and quite a large claim payment, not only in year, but the future out year look is a lot of dollars. So it's easier to sell, why don't we test and learn on a capability that could de-risk us or slightly de-risk us in the COG space when the metrics tell the story.
Yeah.
We have to do something around mental wellness, whether it's dementia and testing and coaching, if you test at risk, or is it, brain games, or, kind of just general mental health where, you could be sharper at home. And I think when you're trying to engage policyholders who may be in their 60s and they say, I'm fine, you really have to try to leverage the influencers, whether that's friends and family. Do you know of anybody who's had dementia? Do you know that baseline testing is becoming more and more mainstream? Do you know the statistics around dementia?
Yeah.
And so if you can leverage family and friends, but also like peer-like comparisons. So people like you, and even you say there's a third of a chance that you may get dementia, put it out there. So compare it to peers like you, clinical based, right? You don't let it,
Yeah.
but that also gets people thinking, what should I do? And technology and medical advances have really quadrupled in the last few years, where they're better, they're cheaper, and they're faster with the results. But it's not just, our motto is we just don't want to tell you you're at risk. We want to help you along the journey, de-risk.
Yeah.
So every capability we offer comes with education and content, and then capabilities and solutions to de-risk.
Yeah, I mean, what I've heard you talk about, not only just now, but historically, is around creating essentially a foundation. These are my words, but a foundation for layering on new innovation, because we don't know what could happen. Just last week we heard of a new Alzheimer's therapeutic that's looking actually pretty promising, which we haven't had a promising medication for decades. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like with your education and your interventions, you could start to deploy, if it were the case and it gets FDA approval, mm-hmm. deploy awareness to all of the, not only the policyholder, but their broader caregiver network.
Absolutely. Your operating model has to be flexible. So as you know, right, we only have strategic partners in our operating model. Those who are going to invest in those capabilities or co-invest with us over time, because there will be advances that changes that operating model and how you deliver that capability or solution to de-risk. My personal belief in the dementia space is that blood and DNA down the road, 5 or 10 years from now, is going to say, what is your risk of getting dementia? Right now it's pen and paper test or online digital assessments, but it's going to evolve. It's going to evolve rapidly. You have to test and learn. There's a capability, but then there's the engagement and the behavior change, which is the most important. If you can't drive behavior change, you're not going to get the ROI.
Yeah, that's why engagement within what our industry calls wellness programs is so important, because you could have the best thing in the world, but if they're not engaged with you, they don't trust you, then it's not going to work. I'm going to close with 2 questions on different time frames. So is there historically throughout your career, a lesson, a milestone, a development that sort of sticks out to you in long-term care insurance that sort of informed how you think about things moving forward? And then the last question, if you want to speak to, built on all of your experience and everything you just said, what are the areas that you are most excited about within our industry? Or we can go to the other way, what are some of the challenges you think that you've identified that the industry needs to adapt to?
2 really good questions. The first I would say is never give up. So when I presented the strategy back in 17, the CFO, I don't think he really believed that we could execute on it and drive value. Our audit committee definitely did not think that. So the more wins you get early, the more capital you get, the more you can test and learn over time. The strategy has to be dynamic, but push your agenda, because at the end of the day, you have to, in order to extract value, you have to take risk, and you have to try different things and make sure that you can sell your story to your policyholders or their claimants. So you're not going to win on everything, but you're going to learn a lot. We're going to get a lot of the data, and that's only going to help us make better decisions in the future. I didn't approach long-term care as a traditional CEO of the business. We weren't just focused on admin and making that better or paying claims. We looked at end-to-end strategy and really how to develop and execute on the strategy that brings value to all stakeholders. On your second question, I think there's a lot of opportunities, but there's a lot of risk.
Yeah.
I'm a positive person, so I start with the opportunities.
Good.
And some we spoke about. I think advances are happening. They're changing the landscape. Data analytics and predictive modeling is a game changer. It really, for the most part, wrings out of the wet towel, the subjectivity. The numbers are the numbers, and you can take that information and adjust the capabilities and solutions. And that's, you'll hear when we get together, we're pushing the Helper Bees and other of our partners based on information and data that we glean. Don't be afraid to call your policyholders and talk to them. Right? A lot of companies do not do that. We do that. We do that a lot, just to get their insight. We also talk to our distribution partners a lot as well to get their insights, because historically, when you think of stakeholders, people just think it's the policyholder in the company. It's much more than that. It's your strategic partners, it's your distribution partners, it's your friends and family of your policyholders. It's pretty broad. Don't take your eye off on what's important at the end of the day, but the right strategy for the right block, it takes time, but you will win in the long run. Technology is also advancing, so we didn't talk about the TPA space, of which we play a big role with our outsourced operating model, but the digital TPA is the future. The specialty TPA is the future. Take commodity work and automate and transform and optimize that work, and have a specialty TPA that can focus on, policyholder needs, more from a very the complex needs. So they're premium rate increases or claim eligibility and so forth. Or for us, it's aging in place and being able to sell or market I shouldn't use the term market, but sell those capabilities to your policyholders. I think the main challenge is the regulatory landscape. And you know, that's not to blame the regulators. They're doing the best they can, but they have limited resources. They don't live this world night and day. So we look at it, you know, we take the approach where we need regulatory approval for our pre-claim capabilities. So we filed with the majority of the states, and we're on that journey for our broader offering, which we call Prudential Peak, rock solid solutions for your total wellness and independence, which not only has mental, physical, and home on-the-go safety, you know, wellness, and it also has financial wellness, and we added peak planning. So we want to help our policyholders with care planning before they need the care, so they make the right informed decisions. So it's an education process. I also think privacy is a big challenge, and trying to get the right consents to get data and not be Big Brother. There's both internal and regulatory challenges there. You know, some of the regulations are not consistent across the 50 states, so you have customization. So our approach is we've been trying to educate the regulators, specifically through our premium rate increase filings, and educate them on what we're trying to do to improve customer satisfaction, de-risk the block, impact the claim curve, and really offer value-added capabilities and solutions, not only the pre-claim but on the claim, that really help our policyholders age in place. You know, Prudential is going to be a trusted environment. We have our foot on the gas pedal all the way to the floor, and you know, I have a great team, so I don't want to not recognize my team, but I have a great team that supports me, and we're very innovative and creative, and you know, it's been a great 6 years for me personally. I never want to give up long-term care, but we've had impact on stakeholders. We will have more impact in the future, and I think that's very exciting, and that's why I love what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I mean, you and your team in general have been great thought leaders in this space, and I can tell y'all are just getting started. And like a lot of people who hit long-term care insurance, it might not be what we expected, but we love it, and there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to do good, not only for policyholders, but again, more for the society. So I want to thank you for coming into our office and speaking a little bit today. I mean, really amazing words of wisdom to never give up and to iterate. So any innovators out there, I think this is just something to heed throughout your life. So thanks, John. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.